Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we start, I would like to bring the Speaker of the Senate. Keon Phillips, up here for a prayer.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Please bow your heads and close your eyes. God, we thank God for this day and we thank God for this journey, God. I thank God for allowing us to be here today, taking us here safely, God. God, I pray that you allow us to adhere to your word today, God, adhere to the information that's given here today, God. God, allow us to keep allowing us to do your will, God, and God, just keep being with us, God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Kervins Carr-Dabraza. I'm the president of Black Student Union, the Open Eyes chapter.
My name is Moses Roldan, President of Videography Club.
Today we're here to celebrate each other and celebrate Black History Month the right way. First I would like to say the idea of Black at STU is to really give the students an opportunity to pick the minds of these professionals, to really understand, what it took for them to get here in their positions. With that being said, I would first like to introduce Dr. Steve Gallen. The Vice Chair of Miami-Dade County Public School, District 1, Commissioner Oliver G. Gilbert, and the Miami Heat Senior
County Commissioner.
My apologies. The Miami Heat Senior Director of Player Programs, Mr. Keith McCraney. Attorney Vanessa Joseph. And celebrity chef and military vet, Mr. Sean Fralin.
I'm also joined here with a couple of our students over here. First, we'll introduce yourself.
Testing. All right, this works. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Takudzwa. I'm a student here at St. Thomas University, currently in my senior year studying business.
Hi, my name is Abigail Delva. I serve as a student government president and resident assistant for Cassia Hall. I am a senior graduating in May.
I am Isaiah Hunter. I am a criminal justice major. This is my fourth year here. I'm a resident assistant for University Inn.
Hi, my name is Christian Pommels. I'm a sophomore here at St. Thomas. I'm a student athlete, and I currently serve as the vice president for Black Student Union.
So in my short time of adulthood, I've learned a lot, and I learned there's a lot of things I don't know. One of the biggest things that I realized is that in the Black community, we are highly misrepresented, and in the professional world, we are underrepresented. So, and that made me realize that we take on a burden every day, and we have to break barriers every day. So with that question, I have a question for you guys. Have any of you guys ever felt that you were affected in any way by your skin color in the professional world? Anyone can start. You can take the mic.
Okay, thank you. I'm Oliver Gilbert, and I'm the Vice Chairman for Board of County Commissioners. And I think the Councilman Robert Stevens from the City of Miami Gardens is here. You all give him a round of applause. It's an interesting question. I don't think about it often. If I had to think about it, absolutely. I mean, people say what they want to, but you start to listen with your eyes before you do with your ears. And so everyone has a preconception about what they think, a county commissioner or mayor would be. I've been places where my officer, they thought he was the mayor when they walked up to me. He was white, I was black. I don't necessarily let that affect how I act, because I understand that we were all born into the world that we were born into. And so the things that affect us sometimes we don't even know about it. My job, from my perspective, is to actually always do well by the residents, do well by my family, well by my father's name. Because ultimately, if I do well by all those three things, it'll work out.
I'll go ahead. So I'm an immigration attorney and at Catholic Legal Services, so we actually partner with St. Thomas all the time. And oftentimes when I go into court, they think that I'm the interpreter or maybe I am the individual who is actually supposed to be appearing in court versus the actual attorney. And it's a little bit frustrating, right, to have people still believe that in 2022, Black women cannot become attorneys or are not attorneys. But then when I think about my workplace, right, I've also thought about the instances where I've seen the way that my colleagues may react to the stories of Black immigrants versus the story of Latino immigrants. And it's a real important topic to bring up because, especially when we're thinking about Black History Month, the fact that Black immigrants exist means that immigration is a Black issue as well. But a lot of people think of it only through the lens of being a Latino issue. And I remember just being in Mexico, assisting immigrants who were trying to arrive at the border to seek asylum, and even getting flagged by the US government because of my skin color, right? Like I could not possibly be the attorney who's trying to accompany somebody asking for parole. I just had to probably be somebody who's just trying to get in. So it's things like that, especially in work that I'm passionate about, that really brings to mind the importance of using my voice and our collective voices, right, to remind people about who we are, where we come from, what our realities are, and constantly trying to challenge people, or well, not trying, but actually constantly challenging people to change those biases and prejudices that they may have without even realizing it.
Just to speak on the subject, Kenny McCraney from Miami Heat. I think my experience is twofold, being an athlete, ex-athlete, and a coach. First of all, people look at you if you're an athlete, your positions, okay? If you're in football, you definitely couldn't be a quarterback. In terms of, I work in the front office at the Miami Heat. They automatically assume, oh, you got to be a coach if you work there, or you're a player or a player assistant or something like that. So you run into it all the time. Even back from in high school, I guess I was called a nerd, but I made straight A's. But there's no way if you're an athlete, you make straight A's. So it's looked at as color, but it also is looked at as you're a jock. So I've had to deal with it, and even today, when you talk to somebody and you say, "This is what I do," I assist the players with their finances. I assist them in buying a home. I assist them I mentor them. You can't possibly do that. That's not what you're there. Aren't you there to help them jump higher with their jump shot? So that's my experience.
Hi, Sean Fralin. Well, mine is, I've had a non-conventional journey to get where I am today. And when I was 17, I joined the military. So I had to get my mother's permission to join the military. I was still in high school. I joined when I was a junior in high school. So during the summer, I went to boot camp, came back, finished high school, then went back to boot camp. It wasn't until I got out of the military that I went back to school to get my culinary degree. But while I was in the military, I did experience some forms of discrimination because of me being a minority. But I didn't let it stop me from doing what I wanted to do and achieve what I wanted to achieve, and that was to serve my country. It was challenging at times because you felt like you were targeted, But even then, you still just keep fighting, and moving forward, because there's just so many of us that have come before me that have laid the groundwork for me to be able to do what I'm doing today, or even when I was in the service. When I got out of the service, me and a friend of mine, we actually applied for the same position at Sears to be a loss prevention officer. And this was shortly after I got out of the military. And he was more qualified than I was because he had a correctional officer background certification. But they chose me. He was darker than me, and I was lighter than him, but they chose me over him, the more qualified. And that, again, is another form of discrimination that I experienced, which I found very, very interesting. But I used my platform to allow them to get to know the culture and understand the culture a little bit better, so they wouldn't make that same mistake, and they would look at us all the same based on our experience, not based on our color. As a chef, it is difficult to climb the ladder in the kitchen because oftentimes the head chef is of Caucasian descent. And so you're looked at as just a line cook. And you have to push yourself, no matter what industry that you're in. Oftentimes when you're a minority, whether you're Hispanic or Black, you oftentimes have to push yourself harder than your counterparts to get any headway. And that's just how it is. But it's not necessarily the right thing, but it's just how it is. And so you cannot allow those challenges to stop you from pushing yourself, because you just only make yourself a better person because you're working even harder than your counterparts. So I pushed myself, and I did a non-conventional route. I left the restaurant community and worked as a private chef for a number of years, for over 15 years as a private chef. I've now moved back into the corporate sector, and I'm working as the food and beverage director and the executive chef. I wear 2 titles at the Ritz-Carlton residence on Miami Beach. So I've pushed myself, and I've utilized my platform to make way for others to follow me as well. And so when I look at individuals, for their professionalism, their experience, and their willingness to grow and learn. That is a big key factor right there. Whenever you go to a job, you never know what they're looking at, but guarantee you one of the many things that they're looking at is your willingness to learn and grow, because you may not have the experience, but they want to be able to train you for that position. So just keep that in mind. That's one thing that I want you to keep in mind. It's just that willingness to grow, which is going to get you hired oftentimes.
Yes, I'm glad the prior speakers kind of broke the narrative around what I felt was embedded in the question. And what I felt was initially embedded in the question is, have we had these confrontations at this particular point in our professional and political careers? I thought the question was really predicated on the notion of, since we've been elected, since I've been an attorney, since I've been in the NBA, since I've been a head chef or whatever my respective places have I now been confronted with racism? The answer is no. The answer is no. I go back as a 30-year-plus educator back to kindergarten, each of us. And there was this one book that said, appearance makes the first impression. That's in kindergarten, that's in career education in high school, that's in courses that you may take in college that talk about dressing to impress, like my colleague to the right of me. Okay, but we share the same tailor, we do. But the reality of that question, of that narrative, of that lifelong conundrum for us is that it didn't take me to become an elected school board member to realize that I'm Black. It didn't take him to be a county commissioner to realize that he's Black. It didn't take her to graduate from law school to realize that we're Black. The journey of being Black and being subject to predispositions based upon our appearance wasn't restricted to the attire that we wore, because I wear Timberlands and jeans and T-shirts, and so does he. and so does she. We dress a different way, but we are unable to conceal the color of our skin, and therefore we have been historically subjected to predispositions based on our appearance. And I'm not talking about attire. There's a difference between appearance and attire. And that is something that we've had to navigate through our entire lives. So it brings me to the point, that is a harsh reality, but it is up to us to learn not simply to navigate through it, but in the commentary that was made, how to rise above it. And I'll give you these 3 examples very quickly. My first inclination was when I graduated from college, an historically black college university, Florida A&M University, named Time best university in the nation. Magna cum laude, 3 years in English. I went to FIU to earn a master's degree in English. But I felt that because I came from an historically black college or university, I was asked to take a prerequisite course. So that was something that was a predisposition about the university I came from and the challenges that I would confront. Fast forward into my career. I became an assistant principal at 23, a principal at 26, and I earned my doctorate at 28. When it came time for us to be promoted at the district level, there were 3 of us that were promoted. I was promoted, a colleague of mine that was white, another colleague that was Hispanic, and all of us were high school principals. I was the only one that had a doctorate degree. I was the only one that had served in an urban school the longest. And again, I had the bona fides and the credentials. The other 2 individuals were promoted to a higher position than I was. The only difference is that I was black. But we understand that journey throughout our entire lives. It's not anything that dissuades us. It is not anything that impedes us, but it is something that should empower us. And that empowerment process begins through education. Because your belief, your skill, and your will, nobody can take that away from you. And that will rise above your attire, that will rise above any appearance, and that is how you make a solid impression despite many of the challenges that we face.
Testing. Okay. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Christian. Kind of piggybacking off what you said, I know there's a lot of predisposed notions about who you guys are as individuals based on the color of your skin and what profession you guys are in. And I'm just wondering, at what point in your life did you kind of figure out your sense of self? With everybody already assuming who you were, at what point did you understand who you were as a person rather than what everybody else said?
I'll make it quick and I'll pass it to my colleagues. When I came to the realization, I attended predominantly black schools my entire career. I'm from Liberty City. The first time I ever attended school with a non-black was my senior year at Northwestern, and he was a Mexican kicker. And I mean that. I don't mean to categorize that he was a Mexican. That was well before we had the influx of Hispanics and Cubans to this community, predominantly Cubans, but it was a Mexican that was in Liberty City. He was a kicker on the football team. He was the only non-black in the school. At FAMU, where we both attended, my entire 3-year career in FAMU, I attended class with one white male. And Commissioner, he was a student from Florida State University that was taking an African American studies class at FAMU. When did I come to the realization that I was fully prepared, despite many of the challenges? Is when I came to the realization when the tables turned. The tables turned. The tables turned when I entered into FIU, a predominantly white university. And I was one of the only 2 African Americans in that educational leadership program. And at that particular time, I realized that their intellectual ice was not colder than mine. And if you don't understand what that means, and I'll just say it very quickly, back in the 20s and the 30s, and you people are very young, you call it a refrigerator. We grew up calling it an ice box. And ice was kept cold because of blocks of ice were put in boxes. And because we were preconditioned, we were miseducated, we felt that we would see a black person selling a block of ice and a white person selling a block of ice. The black person's ice may have been cheaper, larger, but we went and bought the ice from the white person because we thought that their ice was colder. So I realized at that particular moment, there, Harvard University, Stanford University, that my intellectual ice was not cold, it was freezing.
Yeah. You know, I might just, I was a pretty strange kid. So I wrote poetry and played football and was at AP classes, but I was a little truant. Mr. President, excuse me, I was truant. I skipped school. I didn't, my mom, she can't do anything now about it, but I skipped school. And so I never really bought into social norms. And like even now, I just don't, I'm happy he introduced me to our tailor now because he allows me to, I just don't believe that I have to actually fit into the box that you identify me with. So I grew up with a particularly high opinion of myself. Even, you know, as a kid, it didn't matter if we all disagreed, that's cool, you can disagree. But I got this opinion, this is my opinion. And so even as a child, going to FAMU only bolsters that. FAMU, listen, you become unapologetically black at FAMU. And then coming here to St. Thomas University of Miami, it reinforced in a lot of ways what I understood of myself, that even though the world might have been saying that, you know, you're not as smart, your A isn't the same as their A, in truth, my A was better. And so, but I had that confidence as a child. And ultimately, listen, you all are young students, you're gonna be young professionals. You're gonna be professionals in this world. No matter what I say to you, you have to have confidence. You have to believe. You're getting a great education here. You are smart, you're capable. I speak to kids in our schools. I visit all of my district schools. And I'm not one of those people who tell you that you know, to ever play small or be humble. I want you to think you're the best thing in the world, and then I want you to go prove it. I want you to think that you're better than everybody taking this test, and I want you to get a higher grade, and I want you to do the work to actually prove it. My whole thing has always been that I'm just going to work to prove that I am the best person at this. If it's a class, if it's a competition, if it's a campaign, let's just go. I believe that I'm better and I'm gonna prove it with my work. And so a lot of times we wanna prove it with our mouths. You wanna prove it with your attire. No. Prove it, he is brilliant. Prove it with your work. You know, she's brilliant, prove it with your work. And so that's how I was raised. You know, a Southern Baptist preacher, a Seventh-day Adventist teacher who said, you don't have to be the same as everyone else. You just be comfortable being you. And I found that comfort. And so now, look, it doesn't matter if I mess up speaking, people laugh at me, I laugh at myself. Your laughing doesn't control what I think of myself. And that speaks to all of these kids. I see the news, and all these kids, there's so many kids committing suicide and contemplating suicide. Yeah, that's crazy to us. People called us names in school. We were taunted, bullied. I never even thought about it. Because I always knew I'm going to be incredible. Know that you're incredible and that you're going to be incredible. And the only thing between that point A and that point B is the work you're about to put in. That's all it is.
So I had the opposite experience, and you know, as a Black woman of a certain age, right? It's an ever evolving concept, right? This idea of coming into yourself. And I actually attended predominantly white institutions. And I remember being very young, and I'm Haitian, so my parents put castor oil in my hair. And so, I mean, I got good hair, right? Like, it's great hair, but it smelled, right? It smelled like castor oil. And then to be around white people who did not understand what castor oil was and what it was for. Y'all talking about me?
Well, castor oil doesn't smell good.
It's okay though, but it's good for your hair. Listen, I'm the kind of person who will suffer for vanity. I'm not gonna lie. I think your hair is so important. The things you do to your skin, it may not be appealing, but it's what you do for you. So leave me alone. So, you know, just growing up, it was just, you know, people not understanding, asking questions, and making you feel very uncomfortable. And while people don't believe it, I'm a very, very shy person. I am an introvert. I don't actually like to speak. And I understand that I have to do it, right? Because we have platforms. These are the things that we need to do to be able to contribute, right, to the next generation. But all in all, it's always been a struggle to really feel this level of confidence, right? And I remember, and I don't know if you remember, but right after I got elected, we were at an event and I refused to take pictures because, again, don't like to talk, don't like to take pictures. And Oliver was like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're just as great as anybody else in here, so get up over there and go take some pictures. And it was something about that, and I never forget it. I always think about it. Every time somebody's telling me to take a picture, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, Oliver would say, go take a picture. But it was at that point that I actually realized that there was something that I wasn't really feeling about myself, right? And I was like, damn, maybe I'm shying away from these things because I don't feel that I do belong, right? I didn't have the same experiences growing up. I always felt as if I was either a black sheep or I was not, I didn't completely fit in, right? Because to be Haitian, and those of you who've gone to predominantly white institutions, you'll know that you're not black enough, right? But you're also you're not white. And so you kind of always had this feeling of not belonging into any space. And that's how you started to really just stay to yourself and not have to deal with anybody. You ain't got to explain yourself to anyone. So for those of you who may be going through a similar experience, I tell you that time does come, but if I could do it all over again, I would have probably prayed for an Oliver Gilbert, right? A Commissioner Oliver Gilbert to tell me something like that earlier, right? Because then I would have probably been just a little bit further in life. I think it's really important for people to realize that you may have a certain experience growing up, but it doesn't ultimately determine your destination, and it doesn't ultimately become and stay your story, right? And so it's okay to continuously evolve. I think I'm still learning to be 100% comfortable exactly as I am, because a lot of people see me as, the elected city clerk and the attorney, and they have no idea how I really am after hours, right? So you just want to be your whole self, and it's a struggle, right? Because they expect you to be in a suit, they expect you to be prim and proper, but sometimes you want to hang out with everybody. So, it's just an ever-evolving struggle to balance these different parts of yourself. And so for those of you who haven't arrived there yet, it's coming.
Before we continue, I would like to introduce our beloved president. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce President David Armstrong, the 10th president of St. Thomas University.
I just want to welcome everyone here. This is, in the short time I've been here, is so special, and hearing everybody being authentic and talking the truth about their experiences, and I think it's just wonderful, and great job questions with the students. Good job. Very impressed. Obviously, Black History Month is so important to what we're doing here at St. Thomas University because of who we are and what we are and who we serve. I know this is going to surprise some people, but I am a 58-year-old white man, and but I am here because of who we are and who you are. I am a capitalist. I don't hide from that. Okay, I'm a Hamiltonian. I believe the best way to human flourishing is to have economic opportunities. And I know this. I'm going to give out a statistic. Net assets of white families in this country, on the average, are $170,000 per family. Net assets for African American family in this country, $17,000. That is not good. Number two, I know that the best way to advance an individual's life and then generations to come from that person's that future family is to get a college degree. Education is the great equalizer. My parents came from nothing on the east side of Cleveland. I'm a first-generation college student. I know how education has changed my life. They made great sacrifices so their 7 kids can get a Catholic faith-based education. And the key is the education that fits for you, whatever that education is get that education, because earning that bachelor's degree will guarantee you more than $1 million more in your lifetime than if you only had a high school degree. The separation from high school degree to college degree now is getting worse. It's getting more and more. And if you would earn more advanced degrees, you even earn more. And it's not just about the money. It's about being able to provide for yourself, provide for your family, hire people, give other opportunities to more people. That's what we're here for. That's why I'm here, is to do that. And I love what you said about attire and appearance. That is so true. And if I can give one story, if it's okay. When I was a college football coach, and I used to say to my team to start the season, I'd say, listen, I don't care if you're black, white, green, yellow, polka dotted, purple, or Martian. I'm gonna treat you all the same, like dogs. We are gonna work hard and we're gonna get better. But I stopped using that, because one day one of my favorite and best players, my captain, Clyde Morgan, came into my office, and he was obviously troubled. I said, Clyde, what's up? He goes, Coach, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do. I need your help. I said, all right, tell me what's up. He said, my car had to get fixed. I took it to a guy, and he fixed it. I came to pick it up. He told me it was going to be $400. I went to give him the $400, and he pulled out a big lead pipe, slammed it on the floor, on the desk, and said, hey, N-word, it's now $1,200. I'm telling you, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, oh my God, this is happening to one of my kids, or one of my players. And this is the greatest kid in the world. He's now a coach. He now coaches other kids. And he's an excellent coach, track coach and football coach. And from that moment on, I had to change what I said and how I did my work, because I saw through his eyes that his appearance, with whatever that issue was for that person, okay, that it was different, and that's wrong. So I love the fact that, Black History Month should be 12 months out of the year, right? Should be all our history together. I'm gonna be honest, I'm pissed off. I didn't learn about the Tulsa Massacre when I was in school. We had a Black Wall Street in this country and got destroyed intentionally, purposefully. And I didn't learn about that. That's craziness. We all need to learn about that, and we all need to be together, and we all need to be authentic. But it's about advancing your situation and getting a past appearance and attire, your hard work, your effort, your education. And that's what we want to do at St. Thomas University for you. God bless you as always. Thank you so much. Go Bobcats. I want to say he looks sharp in his suit. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you to President David Armstrong. I'll give it back to Mr. Moses.
Just continuing, I think I share some of the same, some of the same situations as two of these folks. First of all, I went to a predominantly white school, University of Florida. But I grew up, in Liberty City, Miami, and I went to Miami Northwestern. But I guess I came in to know who I was once I went to the University of Florida. But I grew up, my mom was an educator. My aunts and uncles, they were all teachers. My dad was an architect / preacher. So I kind of thought I could, tackle the world anyway. And if you went to an all-black school, high school like Northwestern, most of the teachers were FAMU and Bethune, and they were instilling in some stuff to you that could let you handle a little bit of everything. I ended up going to the University of Florida, and I actually walked on a basketball team that nobody said I could make. I ended up getting a scholarship and being there for 4 years, and I ended up coaching there for 10 years. But I think when I got there, I kept running into, yours is not good enough, or you can't handle this. And I mean, I overcame those hurdles, but go back to what Commissioner said. I just had a lot of confidence, and I didn't think anybody was going to beat me, anybody was going to stop me. And if you did, I'm going to be coming back at you again until I achieve whatever I was trying to get to. And I would just piggyback on what he said. That's when I found myself. That's when I realized what I was dealing with. But the confidence, if you have confidence, you can get past or get over anything. And the sooner you find out what you want to do, how you want to do it, you put your heart into it, nobody can stop you.
I think one of the common denominators with all of us up here is that we're all fighters. Even before we knew what we wanted, we had been instilled with the spirit of a fighter. And that's what I think we all want you all to walk away from, is that whatever you want, you have to fight for it. It's not going to be given to you, no matter what economic background you come from, whether you're successful, your family's successful, or you are underprivileged, you're going to have to fight for it. It's just no getting around it. And as a minority, whether you're Hispanic or Black, you're more than likely going to have to fight twice or 10 times as hard as your white counterparts, and that's just how it is. But you still have to fight. And during that fight, you'll find a confidence that exceeds most people. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different struggles. And your struggle is no less or greater than mine. But the bottom line is you still will have the unbelievable level of confidence than someone who's not willing to fight for what their dreams are. Myself personally, I had been working since I was 8 years old, working a job since I was 8 years old, and then working a actual paycheck job since I was 14 years old, and then joined the military at 17. So I've been fighting all my life, but becoming really aware of my hopes and my dreams that I've dreamed of when I was a kid, it came to me, I would say around when I was about 33. When I was 33, I realized I had this greater self-awareness than ever before of who I am, and what I want. And I recaptured some of my childhood dreams. Like one of my childhood dreams was to go shark cage diving with great white sharks. I did that in South Africa, outside of Cape Town. One of my other dreams were to visit an Asian country, and I visited Thailand and Japan and experienced the culture. So one of my dreams I still have, that I still yet to achieve, is actually touring the Amazon jungle. So one day I'm gonna tour the Amazon jungle. Another dream I achieved was going scuba diving off the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. So all of those dreams that I dreamed of when I was a child, I made sure that I fulfilled them in my adulthood, because that shaped me and who I am. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because dreams are important. Dreams are so important. They give you hope for the future. They give you something to live for. Whether you dream about being a significant part of your community, like these gentlemen are, and ladies and gentlemen are, or you're doing something more independent for your family, whatever. But the dreams give you a direction to go in, and don't let anyone or anything diminish those dreams that you may have as a child when you're 5 years old. If you still have those dreams from when you're 5 years old, or even a dream as in your young adulthood. Now that you're here at St. Thomas University, where you become more self-aware of what you want, not what your family wants out of you, but what you want. So live your dreams and know that you evolve differently from each and every one of us, because your circumstances of where you come from are different from each and every one of us. So you will come to be self-aware of what you want at a different level, at a different time in your life, and know it's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. You know that you will grow into the person that you wish to be in your own due time.
So, let me just, as Black people, we commonly have been taught to ignore mental health, mental health. And as Vice Chair had mentioned before he left, that the rates of suicides between Black youth, and as well as depression, has gone up significantly over the past years. And throughout my own journey, I've realized that we all face a lot of adversities. So my question is for everyone, start with TK. What are some adversities you faced in this transition into adulthood? And what are things you've done to try to get past it?
That's a really good question. Once again, my name is Tukutwa. Thank you so much to the Black Student Union. First of all, you guys look stunning. It's very unfortunate that I never got to ask that gentleman his tailor's number, you know. We need to talk after this. For sure, for sure, for sure. But just to answer your question, Moses, you know, for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. That's in Southern Africa. And throughout my life, you know, my father, he always tested me, you know, he always put me within pressure, you know. So when you're raised within those sort of the conditions, like mental health pretty much becomes like non-existent, you know. Growing up for me, it was really all mental, you know. If you were dealing with something, he would just simply say, you know, man up, pray, you know. And my mother, she always taught me the power of prayer. So, you know, going through everything that I went through, even coming here for the first time, you know, my first week of college, I didn't even have, you know, even like a pillow to sleep on. I was given $100, and my father, we were at the airport, $100. I had no textbooks, no books, nothing, no laptop. And he said, hey, man, like, all the best. Gave me $100, and that was it. So when you're raised like that, you tend to grow up pretty quickly, and you tend to really learn how to, you know, kind of move about from a very young age. So for me, mental health growing up, it was something that was never really looked at as something serious, but it's something that, you know, like it's real, you know. There's people who are dying out there, you know, with depression, like among many things. So even though for myself, I grew up within that tough upbringing, for most people, you know, they don't really have that. So it's something that we definitely need to just speak about more, like as a people. So for sure, you know.
So my story is a little different because my mom's a psychologist. So mental health was a big thing in our household. Open communication lines between my parents. If there's any point in time where I felt as though I was sad or upset, those doors were open for me to communicate with people. So I think that we need to continue to advocate for mental health within these communities, especially because sometimes it's not always easy to go and talk to someone. But in the case of me, my mom's my best friend, and she's a psychologist as well. So I never really had those problems, but I know that it's important to continue to advocate for it.
My story is a little different than Abby's. But in my household as a youth, I didn't grow up, I guess, talking about my feelings a lot. Mental health really wasn't something that was talked about until I got to my teenage years. Maybe I was maybe 15. Yeah, and then later on, I will say I was diagnosed with depression. So a while ago. So I've been kind of dealing with that for a long time. So I guess dealing with, what's my train of thought? I'm sorry. I would say, I guess, growing up without talking about or opening up all the time is a huge struggle. And I guess it became a very bad habit. And then that kind of tied in with poor communication. And yeah.
Hi, everyone. I guess growing up within my family is from the islands. My mother and my father are both Jamaican. And growing up, the open line of communication wasn't really always there. They kind of had that you have to be strong disposition. I guess it comes from always being tested, constantly tested. And so growing up, I kind of was the black sheep because they didn't understand why I had these emotions, and I was asking questions as to why do I have to not be upset. And I know that as I got older, I made sure that I wanted to be in a place where I could be able to be that open line of communication for other people, which is why I entered psychology. I understood that mental health was very important because even within my own family, there were people that had mental health disorders, and I didn't learn about them until I was older because in my family it was kind of hushed, like it was something that wasn't supposed to be spoken of, but in reality, it's something that my family was going through, and I didn't even know until I went into college. And so for me, I just knew that I didn't want people to feel as though they can't be okay. It's okay to not be okay. And I knew that when I went to college, I wanted to be able to get an education to help people do that as well.
Hi. You know what comes to my mind? Well, first of all, I'm a vet, and I go to the VA for my medical treatment. And at the VA, they have a very extensive mental health program, which is fantastic for vets and their loved ones. And they understood these past 2 decades how important mental health was because a lot of veterans were taking their own lives. And it reflects, reminds me, it allows me to reflect on our culture in itself. Our culture is that you don't talk about mental health. You just don't talk about it. One is they're not all psychiatrists like her mother, which she's fortunately blessed, and we're all not medical doctors. So for us to speak on something that we do not know anything about is just, you forget about it. It's just not gonna happen. So what you have is a lot of people falling to the wayside, and then those who fall to the wayside, they usually get committed to a psychiatric hospital where back in the day, the treatment for mental health was barbaric. And we knew this. And so we didn't want to see our loved ones being treated barbarically in these mental health institutions. So we just took care of them ourselves, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about Uncle Joe was, a schizophrenic. We didn't talk about Aunt Betsy was bipolar. We didn't even understand what bipolar was. So mental health in the Black community, and more likely the Hispanic community, is just not talked about. And it is only in the past 10 years, I believe, really in the past 10 years, that we really begin to discuss and take a notice of mental health because of celebrities taking their lives, because of young teenagers that seem to be successful and had all the gifts in the world and just the world at their feet, taking their own lives. And we just had a recent, another celebrity, she took her own life and she jumped out of the balcony of her apartment. And it's tragic. It is tragic that we don't know how to have these conversations about mental health. But I think the youth of today is leading that way of forcing parents of my day, their day, to have these conversations and get help for their children because they love their children. It's evolving and it's changing because of you pushing us to want to give you help. And the best thing that you can do is know that call those hotlines. If not talking to those hotlines, seeking out therapists and finding that right therapist. You may not find that right therapist when you talk to the first one, but keep looking until you get that connection with the right therapist to help you through your battle and help you become a better communicator help you understand your emotions and your feelings. And know that talking to your teenager friend or your school friend isn't the answer, because they don't have the answers. You have to go out and get a professional to get those answers and find your way through the darkness into the light. You have to.
I think I share the same experience with you. I don't have a psychologist, but I think my mom and dad actually thought they were. But they allowed us to speak up. And my grandfather was from the islands, and he was like, let them boys talk. And we got that from a young age, so we kind of got a chance to get everything out. You might still get your butt whooped, but you got a chance to say what you want to say, express yourself. So I can't really say that I dealt with some of the hard problems that some people deal with, but in the NBA, it is the hottest topic that we have right now, mental health. And when you look at men and athletes, nobody wants, an athlete doesn't want you to think there's something wrong with me or I have a problem. And our culture has always been, you don't say, I'm hurting or I'm feeling a certain way. You hide all that in, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion. But for us, the NBA, we have some great mental health programs. We have hotlines. If our guys have a problem, they don't even have to talk to us. They have a line they can call. They can talk to an outside counselor. They don't have to say anything about it. Once they go into a program, it's between them and the counselor. And it kind of takes letting everybody know what's going on with you out of it. And for our culture, it means a lot. And piggybacking on what you're saying, in the military, you got to be a tough guy. You can't have a problem. You can't feel bad. You can't be sad. And our culture is kind of breeded that. And it's a major, major problem now. But the one thing I would say, problems pass. And sometimes you got to give yourself some time. And you got to get to professionals. You got to get to somebody who can help you. And like you said, it's not your next door neighbor. It's not your buddy. You can. There's so many places you can go now to get help. And I would take advantage of those situations.
Let me tell you one other place you can go to get help is your parents' health insurance. Most health insurance, they have a hotline that you can call for mental health guidance and someone to talk to. So you don't necessarily need to talk to your mom and dad about it, but just understand that if you know their insurance and you're on their insurance, just contact the insurance company and get the mental health line and go from there and get that help.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's also fantastic to have someone in your family that is a psychologist. If I asked my mom to go to therapy when I was growing up, she'd probably tell me that Jesus is the therapist. And that's how I pretty much grew up. And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of things that I've had to deal with growing up, right? So I have a brother who has a mental and emotional disability. It wasn't really diagnosed when he came here because he was a little too old for that. He came from Haiti. And so there really was no diagnosis, and having to raise somebody who's older than you when you're really young is difficult. I remember being, I think, 12 or 13, and that's the first time I saw somebody, and I said the first time, but the first time I saw somebody killed in front of me, right? And nobody ever thought at that time, hey, maybe we need to go talk to somebody, because what 12 or 13-year-old is supposed to see things like that, right? But it was never a topic of discussion because, in all sincerity, our parents didn't have that. My parents didn't have that. My parents didn't have anybody in their life who told them, hey, maybe you need to go talk to somebody. So the expectation that they would do it for me, I really couldn't have that expectation, and I couldn't hold it against them because they could only operate with what they have. And so now, as a person who has the opportunity to take on interns, take on young people in my office working around me, I do take that time to kind of have those conversations. How are you feeling today? And right before I came here, my intern came into my office and I was like, oh, have a seat. And she's like, yes, what do you need? And I'm like, well, how are you? She's like, I'm good. I think I'm good. And I just sat there and I looked at her and she was like, I think I'm good. Am I not good? I was like, I don't know if you're good, but I just want to give you a safe space to let me know if there is something going on. And because I know that growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody who was really interested in how my day really went. They just wanted to know whether all my work was done and what my future plans were. But nobody really wanted to sit down and think about, well, how are you truly doing? And so I try to be that person. If I'm in a space where I have the opportunity to talk to young people, I'm intentional about asking you how you're really doing, because I know people don't really ask you that for the genuine answer. They just want you to say, I'm fine, and then go on with whatever the ask is. Personally, I wholeheartedly believe in therapy. I'm glad that I have friends or people in my life who are therapists. And I think it's so important for people to seek out therapy. I came across an Instagram account for anxious Black girls, right? For people like you all who are uber successful, right? But you're filled with anxiety about what tomorrow's gonna bring. I know that in terms of resources that are out there, there's one called Breakthrough, and they're offering free sessions, right, for a period of time. So if, mental health is something that unfortunately at the state level it's cut, right? And so when you think about how that trickles down into school systems and things like that, there's a reduction in the services that need to be available. But as much as possible, seek out these services. And if you don't seek them out just for yourself or just to be able to have a record, right, of where I could go if I am in need, seek them out for the people in your lives who may need them. I think oftentimes people feel as if they're alone. And I'm one of those people who feels like, I'm not gonna tell you my problems because somebody's always going through something worse than me. But in reality, if what you're going through is difficult for you, then it's difficult for you, full stop. And that's okay. And so people need to normalize actually having these conversations, talking through these things, seeking out the assistance of a Dr. Cadeau, a Dr. Gallen, whoever in your life, right? That can guide you to the resources that you actually need, because you never want that to be an impediment to the full potential that we know that you're going to one day reach.
I think a lot of what needs to be said around mental health has been said. I echo the sentiments that were expressed by each of you. I do believe, starting out with the first respondent, is that this is not a novel issue. This is an issue that unfortunately has now been captured in a broader, more public narrative. We've always had the need for mental health support. But as Vanessa indicated, and I totally agree with her, our life's journey was one that was not grounded in professional mental health services. Outside of that, what we did to navigate, and I can tell you what I did to navigate, was to not simply rely on mental health support and services that were not provided. They weren't provided, and I'm not going to go through the entire series of tragedy that I experienced. Vanessa actually saw the documentary regarding my earlier life and some of the things that I saw as a young person. Highly recommend. Thank you. You have to ask, how does one navigate through that particular issue? First time she saw someone killed, she was 13 years old. First time I saw someone shot dead was at about 9 years old in the street. A father shot his son while we were playing football. And that was just the beginning of my confronting tragedy, without any regards for counseling, support, what that did to us as young men in that community, whether it was a family issue, the divorce of my parents, just a series of issues that occurred growing up without any professional support. But as Vanessa indicated, what I and many people throughout our history, I will say, throughout our history, the history of black folk coming from Africa and the Middle Passage and everything else, was there was always a sense of being grounded, not in something that was reinforced by mental frameworks, but more so by a spiritual foundation. I want to juxtapose those two constructs, you know, where we have mental frameworks, we had spiritual foundations. And that's what kind of got me through, and that's what got many of us through. And what Vanessa said is that her mother said the mental advisor was a spiritual being called Jesus in her life. And we all have something that we recognize as being greater than ourselves. That being said, professionally, I've seen it all. This is not a new construct. I can go back to Tico Jefferson when I was a teacher at Liberty City back in 1992. He had a bad report card. He was going home and he was concerned and he killed himself. He was a sixth grader at Liberty City Elementary School. I go back to my time at Miami Northwestern Senior High School. I was a principal. I can tell you about a young lady in the 10th grade who had a child and she hung herself in the presence of her baby in her room. And I narrated all of these in different books that I've written because these are real stories. The attention around these issues were never really amplified. And we don't even talk about the psychology of how young, predominantly Black and Latino men gun each other down in the street. That is a mental deficiency that I think is exacerbated by a lack of spiritual understanding and apathy. Because if nothing else, that guided us was the fear of God to a greater extent. So there are no easy answers. I think the answers lie in, to the best extent possible, for me, is to have some foundation and affirmation, first and foremost for yourself, but secondly, something that is greater than thyself. And that is what is often defined as faith. Faith is something that we don't see, but we know is there. So that support, that reinforcement, that hope, that spirit of optimism will enable you to find light in the most darkest places. And for me, this is not a fairy tale. This is something that reflects my real life.
So because of time, we do have to end soon. But I would like to ask, do you guys have any final remarks you want to leave anyone with?
Quickly, I just want to say, first of all, thank you guys for inviting us here, but you are going to go through something. You are going to have to deal with something. The confidence we talked about, it plays a big part of you getting through. But for my life, I've been through a lot. I've been fired. I've had a few jobs. I've been out in the valley or the wilderness for a while. But what I've found out as I've gotten older, everything that I went through, every problem I had, set me up for pretty much the best life I could probably ask for. I'm from Liberty City, Miami. I'm back here working at the Miami Heat. I've won 3 championships at the highest level I could do it. I've worked with the best players in the NBA, the Shaquille O'Neals, the Wades, all those guys. All those pitfalls that I had prepared me to get me to this point. So you're going to go through some things, but if you keep the faith, finish the race, you're going to be okay.
I want to say, because a lot of times we as Black people, and I'm not really politically correct, I'm sorry, this new narrative that has emerged, in my opinion, that speaks to people of color, I understand that. I don't really subscribe to that, because people of color, to some extent, allows some and not others to navigate out of convenience. What I mean is, we can never hide being black. If you're Hispanic, you may not, if you're a white Hispanic, you can pass. We can't hide being black. The movie that came out during the pandemic, When They See Us, everybody saw that documentary, When They See Us, about the Central Park Five? That really spoke volumes about just the whole experience of what it is to be black in America, black in society. Okay, Dr. Gallen, you came hard about being black, being black. I'm unapologetically black. But I want to say this, and I have to say this, and I didn't know you were here. I wanted you to hear this. I have to say this, and Vanessa can attest to the fact. She saw the documentary, parts 1 and part 2, what I'm about to say. You can be an advocate for, it doesn't mean you're an opponent against. So don't ever subscribe to the tenet just because you're pro-black, you're an advocate for black people, that you are against people who are not black. That is not something that is simply embedded in history. That is something that is reflective in my life. When you look at the history and the journey all the way from Africa through the Middle Passage, through slavery, through the Civil Rights Movement, there were non-black people that stood shoulder to shoulder, that sacrificed, that fought, that bled, and that died. That died. Black people were just at the forefront. Some of the people that was the most polarized people in this country, aside from black people who couldn't hide, were Jewish people. You're talking about people who were alienated, ostracized, Jewish people. And we're not talking about in Germany. We're talking about here in America. White people. You're talking about Catholics who marched with Martin Luther King. When you're talking about what happened in Selma, when you watched what happened, it was whites, blacks, Latinos. People came together in solidarity. So I have to say that to young people because sometimes, not so much young people, this national narrative that has emerged, that has become a predominant narrative, has been one that has become derisive, divisive, and destructive. And it has polarized so many people. Fortunately, when we look at for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, that's not about simply black young people. People from all walks of life and races. Dr. Gallen, why can I say that? And I have a few chills right now before I close my remarks. She saw my life story thus far, parts 1 and part 2. There were several people that were influential in my life. If I had to narrow it down to 3 people, 3, 2 were white. Mr. Joseph Walpole, a white high school 9th grade teacher from, Boston, Massachusetts, came to Miami. He was my 9th grade teacher. Changed my life. And when they would not let me take English courses at FIU and I wanted to appeal it, I left the North Campus, drove my Volkswagen down to the South Campus, and I was going to talk to someone. I never met the chairperson of that department, but God enabled me to find myself in the office of a short, white, chubby-faced, white male by the name of Peter J. Sistone. He put me on a pathway to earn a master's degree in educational leadership, full scholarship, and a doctorate in educational administration and supervision, full scholarship. And he has been one of my best supporters, my advocates, my mentors, and my friends. Love, support, conviction, courage, and compassion have no color, have no race. So I just had to put a caveat to that because as we celebrate Black History Month, we have to tell the whole story. And we as Black people cannot stand in shoes of hypocrisy and represent falsely, that the past, the present, and the future journey of emancipation, empowerment, and elevation is going to be simply left to the hands and the devices of Black people. It is an impossibility, and the past has told us that, the present teaches us that, and the future promises us that. Thank you.
I want to say thank. Oh wait.
So I just want to put in a plug for the documentary. It's very good. I highly recommend everyone. I mean, I don't know if you can have another screening, maybe just for STU. That would be great because it's a really good documentary. But one of the things that I want to remind you all is that you're perfect as you are. Oftentimes at this age, we're struggling to kind of be the best that we can be, and we think that there's some kind of imaginary line and we're running to that point, and then every time we try to get there, it kind of moves a little bit further. We feel like we're still not good enough. You're perfect as you are. So if you'll indulge me, I just want to stand really quick and do some quick affirmations with you all, because I think that we don't do this, and so maybe if we start normalizing it, and I won't do too many because we gotta go, but I just want us to start a practice and normalize doing these things and telling ourselves these things. I am strong. I am smart.
I am smart.
I am brilliant.
I am brilliant.
I am perfect.
I am perfect.
I am all that I need to be.
I am all that I need to be.
I'm exactly where I need to be.
I'm exactly where I need to be.
And I will be great.
And I will be great.
I am great.
I am great.
And of course, you just modify these. You do these in the mirror. Do it every morning. Do it at night. Do it right before you go to class. Do it right before a presentation. Always remind yourself of your own power, because you really do have it. And so stop trying to get to this imaginary line, because it just keeps getting further. I'm telling you, listen, I'm 34 years old. The line is out into outer space right now as to what I need to achieve, right? But that's just a false sense of worth that you're giving yourself. You are perfect exactly as you are. And so just live in this moment and enjoy it for all that it is.
So mine's 30 seconds. I want to thank everybody for allowing us all to be here again. And thank you. It's humbling to be here and to be a part of your lives in one afternoon. The food today is I prepared jerk chicken, Jamaican style jerk chicken, and chicken wings. It's chicken wings, and mac and cheese is the cheesiest. Where's my? It's the cheesiest, right? It's the cheesiest mac and cheese, and then I also have this salad. This salad with fresh vegetables, and the dressing is a dill and rosemary Greek dressing, citrus dressing that's going to go on top of it. So enjoy, and look forward to, again, doing something like this next year.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for helping us understand what it means to be Black in the world, and also Black at STU. Thank you again.